Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Windshield Time, the podcast where we help you use your windshield time to turn learning into earning. Windshield Time is brought to you by Service Excellence. I am Chris Elmore, the host, and joining me today, my distinguished co-host, I guess is what we'll go with, is one of our coaches here at Service Excellence and trainers, Matthew Barbosa. We'll talk more about Matthew here in a few minutes. Today on the podcast, we are going to be talking about the diagnostic checklist, an oldie but a goodie. Stay tuned. Alex, tell me the history of the clacker in movies. Why do we do why do they do the thing where it's like action, clap? Why do they do that? Mm-hmm. The clapper, and then what's written on the clapper? Gotcha. Okay. Wow, that was a lot. Basically, what Alex just said, for those of you listening, is the clacky thing is used as a clacky thing. And then there was some technical stuff, because I don't know if you guys know this, but Alex Walker, you find him on IMDb, he's an actual cinematographer, as well as that's way down his resume behind being the podcast producer for $100 Million Mindset with Todd Lyles and Alan O'Neill, and Todd Lyles and Wizard of Ads with Todd and Roy, and then probably a host of other things, and then the producer of this podcast, and then being a Hollywood cinematographer. Is that right, Alex? Oh, he said not Hollywood, which means global. I would even go interstellar. See what I did there, Alex? Anyway, let's get to this. So, Matthew, welcome back.
Chris, thanks for allowing me to come back on, man. It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. Yeah, it's been a minute. For those of you that don't know, Matthew is, like I said in the opening, he's one of our business coaches and trainers, but he is a lot like me in that in his life, he's made his living as installer, service technician, doing replacement sales. He's answered phones, he's dispatched. He's done all those things because he comes from a family business. So your dad has been in the trades, I guess, his whole career, and then you were born into it, just like me. You know, my dad got into it after my grandparents were in it. My dad got into it after high school, and I grew up around it, you know, my whole life, and then got into the trades and just have been around it one way or the other since being in the field to doing what I do now and going around and seeing all these companies. You're very similar in that regard, right?
I am, and both of my brothers also are in the trades. My oldest brother works for my dad still, and my younger brother got his contractor's license a couple years ago and went out on his own. So he's got a company now too. So it's in our blood, you could say.
Nice.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, right. And it's kind of like my son-in-law and my son-in-law and my daughter, they met. They were baristas at a coffee shop, and now he owns, well, I guess they own with partners, 2 coffee shops in Dallas. And I can never get him to make me coffee. Your dad and your brother probably never ask you for business advice, right? So
yeah, a little bit more these days, but yeah.
Okay. Well, it's good that we have your perspective, and you and I can geek out a little bit on stuff and that kind of thing. And you know, you've been with us now since 2021, is that right?
Yeah, it'll be
Sorry, I don't remember, but
5 years in July 7th. I thought you had it circled on your calendar with a smiley face.
No, back up 5 days, and that's my birthday. That's what's circled, not the
Ah,
7th.
very good.
Okay. So I guess the main thing about it is both of us have been, the helper, and we've also been the business leaders as well. And so it's just a good perspective. I'm glad you're here, and we're gonna riff on the checklist.
Let's do it, man.
And we've recorded a bunch of stuff on the checklist. If you go to our website, www.servextra.com, we've got blog articles on it. I remember being on a field evaluation with a technician in Sacramento, California, and watching him use his diagnostic checklist on paper on his clipboard, probably back in like 2019. It was before COVID. Yeah. So about 2019. And the picture, if you go find if you find anything about the diagnostic checklist on the website, you'll see a picture of me and that technician, or you'll see a picture, of Josh doing his checklist next to the condenser unit. He's an HVAC tech. And I took that picture with my iPhone and wrote the article while I was with him that day. So the checklist is very, very, very important to me. It's probably the biggest needle mover you'll have for service calls, average ticket, membership conversion, lead turns, things like that. It's probably probably the most important tool you can use is the checklist. And so we're going to talk about it again today. You can go back. We probably recorded 2 or 3 other episodes in the history of Windshield Time on this topic, but we keep coming back to it because it's so important. And you talk about a game changer, going from not using a checklist to using a checklist is a game changer. Now, I had the opportunity in my career to use diagnostic checklists, color-coded checklists, and we'll unpack that a little more. But I had the opportunity to not come from a time not using it, then to a time using it, and saw the difference it made in the communication between me and my customers. And also just it helped me in a way in my career that I'll unpack a little bit too. But that's why we keep coming back to it. Number one, this is my show and I can do what I want. Number two, it's because it's, like I said, one of the most important tools you could have as a technician is the diagnostic checklist and using it every day. And we're going to talk about the benefits to the customer, to the company, to you, the tech, because it helps everybody. So let's start unpacking that. So, diagnostic checklist. When we talk about that, the name can take you to a place that maybe it's a little limiting, right? Because when we think about diagnostic checklist, you might be thinking, well, this is something that I have to have to do my diagnosis. And it's not, is it? For most seasoned technicians, do you need a checklist, Matthew, to go out and do a diagnosis?
No.
Why not?
Yeah. Oh, why not? You're experienced. It's not your first rodeo. You probably have a good routine. You know where you start. You know how you manage that information in your head a little bit. So yeah, you you don't think you need it.
Well, yeah, and if we break it down, just talking technical, for whether you're a plumber, HVAC, or electrician, or any other in-home service trade where there's technical stuff involved, if you're doing the work and you've been trusted in a truck on your own to do the work, then you know how to troubleshoot, right? You know what you're doing to some degree, to some competent level. And so, first and foremost, diagnostic checklist, safety inspection checklist, whatever you call it, it's important that this is done on every call where there's an opportunity. And when we talk opportunity, I know people go, oh, well, now we're talking about sales. Well, we're talking about a situation that you're going in. What's an opportunity? An opportunity is when you're going to a call where there is an opportunity to generate revenue of some sort, whether it's a repair, a series of repairs, it's a replacement, it's a membership.
Even a
But
callback, Chris. I'd even say a callback or a warranty call could be an opportunity.
it could be an opportunity, it could turn into an opportunity. And I think that's why you said something there when you were talking about it, routine. When you establish a routine, it stays with you for until you break it, until you change it, right? And so what doing a diagnostic checklist did for me was it helped me establish a routine. So, as a technician, I knew a troubleshooting process. Now, that troubleshooting process was taught to me by other technicians I rode with. I went to apprenticeship school, and there was some of that there. It was also something that I developed just on my own habits and own processes, those kind of things. And everybody's the same. Your diagnostic process comes to you, your routine comes to you based on repetition and influence of things around you, right? And so, as such, when you're doing that routine, there are things that become unconscious, right? And so, every every trade, every technician in a diagnostic routine has something that they unconsciously check or evaluate or monitor, right? So, what are some things that we unconsciously do, Matthew? I know you're HVAC and plumbing. So let's go with plumbing. What is something you unconsciously would evaluate in plumbing? And when I say unconsciously, you're you use your senses and your brain, but it's only a split seconds of awareness maybe for you, if it even you are aware of it, because you evaluate it, and if it's good, you move on. What's something like that in plumbing you can think of?
I think it starts with the visual side of it, using your eyes and oh man, things just as simple for as getting a lay of the land, checking out the general condition and characteristics of the water heater piping, the condition of things. And when I say condition of things, I don't mean detailed red, yellow, green condition, not just yet, but you're getting a feel for how old
Mhm.
is this house? How
Yeah,
well has it been taken care of? Those things are, I think, part of those routines. I think that's where it starts with a lot of plumbers.
that's good. That's good stuff. If we got specific on something, I feel like, we talked about it on the podcast before. If you're a plumber and you go to a house for no hot water, don't start the water heater. Start where they first noticed they didn't have hot water. Ask them to do that. Even if you get to that house, which is very common here in Texas, a lot of places, water heaters are in a garage. You pull up to that house, there's a gas water heater in the garage. The customer's got the car backed out, stuff moved away. They're standing there in front of the garage door waiting on you to get there. So when you pull up in front of the house and park in the street and get out right away, you look the part, you smell the part, and you start walking up the driveway, you're not just going to go to the front door when they're standing in the garage, right? You're going to go to the garage. Well, it stands to reason that the water heater's probably within 15 feet of you at that point. You could probably see it. Okay. If that's your case where it's in a garage, you go up to that customer, you do your introduction, you you ask them what's going on because we want to find out more. You already have confirmed you're there because they don't have any hot water. They tell you what's going on. You say, "Oh, okay, well," and they say the water heater's right here, and then you can tell they moved the lawnmower and they moved the boxes of Christmas decorations so you can get to it, right? You might walk up to it, glance at it, and go, "Oh, okay." I tell you what, where did you first notice you didn't have hot water? Oh, that was when I was trying to take a shower yesterday. Okay, so that's the master bathroom. Yeah. Okay, do you mind if we start there at the shower? Um, no, come on in. Inevitably, in most houses, when you walk from the garage to the master bathroom, you walk through or near the laundry room, or it's there in the garage, right?
Hmm.
So that's a long setup for this very specific evaluation that you register for a split second and then you move on. You may pull it up later in your brain, but you walk by, what's the first thing you do? I mean, if I'm walking through a laundry room, I'm looking at the washer box, right?
Check those hoses, man.
I'm looking for two things. I'm looking at hoses, but I'm also looking for quarter turn shutoffs for hot and cold instead of gate valves or glow valves or whatever. You got to turn a bunch. I'm looking for that. Well, am I consciously articulating that? Am I going, okay, when I walk by the washing machine, turn my head to the right because it's on the right-hand side. Look at the washer box, evaluate the handles on the washer box or the valves on the washer box for hot and cold, evaluate the type of hoses that are connected. I'm not doing that. It's turn my head, look, move, right? And whatever condition it was in, once I get to where I'm going and I pull out my checklist, I'll mark that.
It's
But
kind
I
of like,
didn't need a checklist to tell me to do that. That's my point here.
yeah, it
And it
reminds me
was
of
unconsciously done.
Chris. It reminds me of how I do my grocery shopping. I open my pantry, I open my refrigerator. I don't need to document how much milk I have. Like I can tell by looking there what I need to buy, what I'm low on, what I need to
Yes.
do. It's kind of like that with I think seasoned plumbers that don't want to use the checklist. They're like, I know what I need to do. I know how
Yes.
to tell what needs to be done.
And so let's say this now so everybody hears this. If you're a seasoned, and when I say seasoned, you've been in the field for a couple of years, JC, tech, plumber, or electrician doing in-home sales and service, you do not need a checklist to diagnose a system. Alex, did you hear that? That's right. Alex repeated that to me. Now, Alex, did we record that? Video and audio? Okay. So it's on record. I'm telling you, you do not need a checklist to troubleshoot any type of system. Okay. That's one technician to another talking. Now, so let's get into why would we do it? Well, I know for myself, going back to that example of say the washer box as I walk by it, or pick any other thing you would visually inspect, just like you looking at how much milk you have in your refrigerator, right? I mean, to me, there's a certain criteria of I need to buy more milk, right? If I got a gallon of milk in the refrigerator that I bought 3 days ago and it's still 3/4 full, I don't need to go open the refrigerator, look at the milk. There's 3/4 of milk left in the gallon. You do not need to buy milk because you only consume this much per day. And then I do some math calculation. I don't do that. I look good, move, right? So again, I want to say it. You do not need a diagnostic checklist if you're a trained, seasoned technician to do a diagnosis. You don't need it. But let's talk about who does need it for that. I'm going to raise my hand. That's the sound of me raising my hand. That's the sound of me putting my hand down. But so I raised my hand because when I was a technician, here's how it helped me. The company I was at the time, we weren't using one for diagnosis at all. We had one, I think, for maintenance, but we didn't use one for diagnosis. Now, Matthew, when you were working, did you ever have a checklist that was used for diagnosis?
I actually did. My dad's always been a best trait I got from my dad working is he was always an early adopter of processes and best practices. So, but I didn't use it correctly. I'll say that. We can get to that
Okay, yeah,
later.
fair enough.
But
Probably I
yeah.
didn't either.
Yep.
And in the beginning, when I started using a checklist, it was very selfish. And the way it went down for me was I got to a house to do a maintenance. I was only a maintenance tech at the time. I got to a house to do maintenance, and it was a system that I was not supposed to work on because it was deemed too technical. It was a water furnace Premier AT2 geothermal 2-stage, blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't supposed to do anything with those. I was supposed to let them know. Well, we had it listed just a standard heat pump, so I was going to go do my standard heat pump maintenance on it. Well, I got there and it was a water furnace. The customer tells me it won't go into high stage or high speed or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. Then I thought, well, maybe I should call it in. And I said, you know what? No, I'm going to do this. And so what I did was I called tech support and I talked to a guy there. Still remember his name. His name was Al. And we were a super duper diamond club, frequent flyer member. So of this vendors or this manufacturer. So we had a vendor ID number that got us to the head of any line when we needed support. And so he got on, hey, I introduced myself, told him what I got. He goes, okay, well, what's this reading? I said, I don't know. He goes, go check it and call me back because I can't hold. I was like, okay. So I went and checked it and called him back. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I got this. He's going to tell me what's wrong. Get on. I said, this is what it is, Al. He goes, oh, That's good then. What's this reading? I don't know, I didn't check it. Well, you need to check that. Okay, well, I got to go do that. All right, well, go do it and call me back. So about 4 calls later, we finally knew what it was, and he told me, he says, "Hey man, next time, you guys have some copies of our visual checklist." And it was a diagram of the system, just a basic line diagram of a system with lines and arrows pointing to different things and readings I was supposed to take. And it was refrigerant. It was water temperature, water pressure, voltages, amperages, temperatures, all this kind of stuff. And so I was like, cool. So I went and got some. And then at first, over the next few months, I got a few more of those systems that I went to and I used it. And I thought, okay, I see what's going on here. And so what that did, I was like, you know what? I don't need to just use this on this type of system. I can use it on everything, every type of air conditioner, or heat pump. Well, then what that taught me was, before you try to troubleshoot, get all the readings. Before you try to talk to another technician, get all the readings. Before you call tech support, get all the readings. Before you try to diagnose it yourself, get all the readings. And so that translated into a troubleshooting process for me that I carry with me today. But in that troubleshooting process, I know there's some acceptable shortcuts. And so if you gave me an HVAC system checklist right now with red, yellow, green, and I went to a home to do a diagnosis, I would still use it. But some of the things on there, I don't even need to know that they're on there to know they're on there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I could evaluate red, yellow, green just using a combination of my senses, but also obviously measuring tools and instruments and things like that. But that taught me a troubleshooting process. So that's one of the values for you as a young technician out there. Using a checklist teaches you a troubleshooting process because it teaches you not to try to find a solution until you have all the information it's possible to gather. And if you start problem solving too early, if you listen to this podcast, you know, if you problem solve too early with Leap, you get it wrong most of the time. Just like if you problem solve too early, technically, you're going to get it wrong most of the time. You'll guess right enough to convince yourself that it's okay, but you're still going to get it wrong most of the time. So that's my take on the checklist. What's some value the checklist was brought to you, Matthew, or you've seen it bring to technicians out there?
For me, it's always been a good like reset button. Um, I do the checklist.
Reset
It
button.
it gives me like this report card in a way,
Mm-hmm.
just like a teacher communicating how a student's doing to their parents. It allows me to communicate to the customer just the general characteristics, the overall, the current condition of what's going on, and so that we can discuss my findings. And it's a really good springboard into the options. It just helps me build that rhythm to make sure that I'm not going too fast. I'm taking my customer along with me throughout the process, step by step. It really helps me just uh, allow that conversation to take place in a powerful way.
And that's great that you bring that up. I'm going to reframe that as communication. I'm just going to pull that word out of communication. So one of the things that is of value to technicians is that the visual checklist, red, yellow, green, becomes a communication facilitator, becomes a translation tool. And that's why I favor a paper one with red, yellow, green. Now, some of you may go on, oh, well, this guy, he's old school and he's Alex. I know what you're thinking. He's old. Oh, paper and all that. He's not a technology guy. I haven't written on a piece of paper to take notes since June of 2020 when I got my iPad, my Apple Pencil. So I'm not a paper guy. Ask anybody. You go to my office, I have 0 files. There is 0 papers on my desk. It's all in my iPad or on my laptop. So this is not me going, you got to be old school. And, when I did service calls, we did them barefooted in a horse and buggy uphill both ways in the snow, even in the summertime. No, I'm not. This paper checklist is something that it's visual, it's tactile, and it's a good conversation facilitator when it's that. Also, the customer gets to see the status of the thing, whether it's electrical, plumbing, HVAC, whatever, roof, doesn't matter. Heck, if you go to probably if I don't even know if Jiffy Lube still does it, but if you go to oil change places, most of the time, they're coming to you and showing you a color-coded checklist that they've written on. It's even got the smudges and things like that on it and all. But that is a conversation facilitator because it becomes a focal point for the conversation. It also helps with it helps the technician remove awkwardness from the conversation, or helps with the awkwardness because now you got something to point to. You're not just staring them in the eye. There's something to point to. But that is one of the most important values of that checklist is the facilitation of communication. Now, did you want to add something to that?
Just really quick about that facilitating conversation, I think it also enhances your credibility and your authority. It kind of raises your
Yeah.
status in the customer's eyes as somebody that has their stuff together.
Hey, I documented it, so it's official.
Yeah, there you go.
And not only that, it's red, yellow, and green, so it's really official, right? And so now, if you don't do something that's red or yellow, it's your fault as a customer. Now, that might sound like it puts them in an awkward place. I don't think it does. I think it sets the accountability where it goes. And so, but it's a communication tool. And that communication extends to benefit to the customer too, because now the customer has something to relate to about your conversation, right? You do not have a common frame of reference because they don't know what you know, and you can't talk technical to them. You have to translate, and this is a translation tool, which is a communication facilitator, right? It's a communication tool. So that extends to the customer on their side too, because now they have something to focus on, and they have something that helps them understand the status of what's going on, because most of the time a customer wants to know what's broken, how did it break, did it break anything else, and what does this mean for the whole thing, right? Anytime somebody has a problem with their car, it's I don't think most people go, oh, well, it's something minor, it's just the check engine light's on. I don't think they do that. I think they go, oh, crap, I hope it's not detrimental to the whole thing. I hope I don't have to spend a lot of money on repairs, or I hope I don't have to get a new car, something like that. And so what the checklist does is it shows the customer right away by red, yellow, green, because they inherently understand it. And I keep going back to the Nelson Mandela quote that I love. If you speak to a man in a language he understands, it goes to his head. If you speak to a man in his own language, it goes to his heart. If we've all been there, we've all been on the other side of the customer bobblehead as we're talking, and they're going, and nodding their head, right? And they're not even getting most of what you're saying. They just need you to get to well, how much is it going to cost me, and when can we do it? We've all been on the other side of that with that customer bobblehead, and they're not getting any of it because you were speaking to them in a language they understand, but you're not speaking to them in their language. And in their language, we typically we're talking about they understand colors, right? That's their language. It's a common thing. Also, we can talk about adapting to profile. That's a different podcast, or a future podcast, but it's a communication tool. Also for the company, it communicates to people who weren't on the call with you what you found. And that's the thing, is it communicates that. Now, when we have better communication, when the customer understands better, they are more involved and engaged. They can make a better decision. They feel like they're more in control, which means they're more favorable to you and your recommendations. So they're more likely to do stuff. And here's the secret. We don't even have to teach you how to use this checklist to sell, and I'm doing air quotes. We don't need you to push anything or whatever. If you tell the customer, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what the colors mean, and you come back after you've done your diagnostics and say, I did what I told you I was going to do, and you know what the colors mean. So now you can see the status of your system. And you walk through the reds and yellow items while still displaying all the greens that are there. It's just a simple fact that if you use the diagnostic checklist and go through it with the customer, that you will document more. And if you document more, you will talk about more. If you talk about more, they will do more. That's it. And if you just use the checklist and talk to them about it, that's it. You don't have to do LEAP. You don't have to present in a particular way. If you just want to see a needle bump or results get better, just start using a checklist. And I would use it on paper, red, yellow, green. Doing it in software, you have to scroll too much. It's on a device that's not the customer's. I mean, how do you feel holding somebody else's phone? How do you feel, Matthew?
It's kind of weird, man. Ew. Have they washed their hands? What is this?
Well,
Am I going to get a weird text message?
I get, yeah,
Weird, man.
right.
I got some weird friends, Chris.
And so that's the thing is like, you don't want to hold somebody else's device, but a piece of paper, and especially here, Matthew, this is for you. This is what I found. I'm just gonna take a picture of it, put it in the software.
I
Use your
love that
device, take a picture.
it's that visual record too of what we did. It can be so helpful with one-leggers and, hey, honey, what'd the plumber find? What'd the HVAC guy find? When that visual record's there, there's a little bit more of a, "Oh, okay, I feel good about the money that we spent today." It has that effect. Don't doubt that it doesn't. I mean, it really does with a lot of customers.
Yeah, and it ripples through a lot of things. But using that paper checklist, it really helps. Really, really, really helps in communication. Like I said, if you just use it, again, and the paper's tactile and you can leave it with them, it's theirs. That's it. You got a picture of it. You don't need it anymore. You've got it there. And so and I go back to what we started with, which is you don't need a diagnostic checklist to do a diagnosis. But this is the last point of this one, and we'll pick it up with the next one because I'm going to leave you on a cliffhanger. Alex, do you like cliffhangers? Okay. I'm going to leave you a cliffhanger today. But here's this last point. We talk about you don't need a diagnostic checklist to do a diagnosis if you're a seasoned technician, right? Well, here's the thing. I want you to derive maximum value from your knowledge. And I'm not talking about money necessarily. I'm talking about maximum value and trust from that customer. Maximum value and even prestige because you're an expert, right? Because you know a lot. You know a lot of technical stuff. You're an essential part of society. People do things indoors 24 hours a day because of you. Without you, without us as technicians in the trades, people do things in all kinds of climates, outdoors. It's like, how do they charge their stuff, right? How do they take hot showers? How do they stay warm, cool? All the normal stuff. So I want you to derive maximum value for that. And I'll go back to my washing machine, washer box example. I walk by that and I look, okay, nothing looks corroded and, the hoses don't look bulged, and I just walk by it. I don't even think about it. Well, there is value there because they need braided hoses. And if it's my house and something goes wrong, I want to be able to turn the water off real quick. I want quarter turns. Now, I don't know if there are code in place now. I know my house, it was built in the last 5 years, and it has those quarter turn valves. My point is, normally you wouldn't even document that. If you're not using a checklist, how are you going to document that? If you're not using a checklist, how are you going to document the condition of the toilet components? How are you going to document the age of or the condition of the dozen or so components you evaluate on a water heater? Because you won't. what'll happen is, well, your water heater's old. There's no individual issues with it other than the thing that's causing it not to work. There is, but you don't document those because you're focused on what's not working. And so what happens is we leave off the other things sometimes because we're just trying to fix it. And then we don't document the greens, and the greens build value. The greens build trust, right? And so we've got to document our knowledge. We've got to document our skill set, and completing a diagnostic checklist helps the customer understand how thorough you are and how much of an expert you are. That helps build trust, and the greens help build value. So that's some of the value of the checklist, especially for technicians. We'll talk more when we get into the next episode, which is one other benefit for technicians, which is, Alex, can you put a drum roll in? If I'm doing a drum roll on the desk, can you hear it?
Oh, that's solid. Love it.
CYA. Cliffhanger is CYA. Tell you next time. In the meantime, if you want to talk to us about this, you can reach me, Chris Elmore, 254-733-7109er. And yes, you did hear a niner in there. Or Elmore at servextra.com, SERVEXTRA.com. If you want to talk to Matthew Barbosa, and why wouldn't you?
214-878-9672. You can catch me on the email, Matthew, that's with 2 T's, MATTHEW, at servextra.com.
Go to our website, servextra.com. Check out podcasts, blog articles, all that kind of stuff. Really great tools. There's downloads, past episodes of the show. Like and share this podcast. Send us suggestions for topics or just how much you love the podcast. That would be good too. But also keep an eye out because our next series of workshops are coming up at the end of February. And that'll be here before you know it. And it's time to start getting registered for that. So by the time you hear this, there's probably going to be a few weeks until that happens. So don't wait. Okay. In the meantime, Matthew, do you know how we end this?
How do we end it, Chris?
I'm going to ask you a
the kids
question
at home. Okay.
What do we do here at Service Excellence?
At Service Excellence, we turn learning into earning.
That's right. Bye, everybody.